All right, baseball fans, welcome back to another installment of the 1973-76 off-season, third installment, moving past halfway, looking at teams' moves to get to the requirement before we can draft, finding out who is going to be kept, waived, and retired. Really interesting scenarios where some quality players are going to end up on waivers because there's no homes for them, which is a good problem to have. It's usually the case where there's not enough talent, but you're going to see some surprising names here. Let's begin with Philadelphia, starting at 40103, and they get to 40202 simply by making a minor deal. They simply, Milt Pappas, who the Colorado got for Eddie Watt, they acquired him as a waived player, sending a retired player to Colorado. So that simple move ties up two loose ends. It got Colorado to the proper math. It gets Philadelphia to the proper math. They're ready to go. Colorado feels that Ron Reed either starting or relieving, Dick Drago starting or relieving, Duncan, Joe Liss. Phillies are going to go Carlton, Dobson, Terry Harmon, Tony Taylor. I mean, a lot of times it's just holding on to what you got versus looking out someplace else for the unknown. And because, which took us to the next team, Kansas City, which has 7 keepers, finally realizing they should hold on to Piniella, which meant that either Bob Oliver, Ed Kirkpatrick, Roger Nelson, some combination of players are probably going. What did Kansas City do? Try and trade guys and get some tokens in return, and they did. So they did find teams that would make a move. So it was Roger Nelson, mostly because of reputation of that 72 card. He gets sent packing to Portland for a retired Ray Bear. By the way, if this is 1972, you're talking about pitchers with like a 190 or 208 ERA and a guy with a 0.54 ERA, if we're talking 72. So they get traded after that season for each other. Kansas City gets a token because Nelson will play. Bear is not any good anymore. And then after that, Kansas City made another move by sending Bob Oliver to the Angels for Horace Clarke, who they're going to put on waivers. So give Kansas City some credit. They also then had to realize that Ed Kirkpatrick, they still are technically keeping Ed Kirkpatrick at 50102, but still waiting for a team to come get a left-handed hitting catcher, first base, outfield. Plenty of teams should want that, you'd think. So Kansas City will sit at 50102 and just keep waiting in the offseason for a call. Pittsburgh had 2 of their 6 guys, really good guys, by the way, that they couldn't hold on to. They kept the obvious ones: Richie Hebner, Al Oliver, Manny Singian, and Dave Justy got the nod over Ramon Hernandez because he's got a little bit more of a shelf life than Ramon Hernandez, and Bob Moose. So they were able to move Hernandez. They send Hernandez to the American League so as not to hurt them, to Cleveland for retiring Joe Grozenda. So Cleveland gets a second lefty for that bullpen. They were always more effective when they had 2 lefties, back when they had Steve Mangori and Tom Hilgendorf. Now they've got Ramon Hernandez and Tom Hilgendorf. So it's good to have 2 lefties in Cleveland. Pittsburgh gets a draft token. And then after that, Cleveland, to make room for Ramon Hernandez, they move Jack Brohammer onto waivers. Pittsburgh then finds that, check this out, folks, Bob Moose goes on waivers? Well, I mean, he continues to pitch, but he's just sort of ordinary. He's got 1 more year on 3 days rest, but the hits and walks innings pitched is kind of high. And they've got other... He will be scooped up by somebody in the draft, maybe even the Pirates. They're hoping he can pass through waivers and they can reclaim him, but he ain't the only one, folks. What's the next guy? Yeah, the next guy. Here we go. Check it out. Joe Coleman. Now, Moose and Coleman a year ago in the 71-74 World Series would have played against each other. And now, 2 years removed, they're on waivers by those teams. Ineffectiveness. They really start to slip. beginning beyond 1973, 4, 5 in those years. So Moose and Coleman let go. But the other reason they're let go is that both Pittsburgh and Detroit had too much talent to hold on to. You have to consider that. So Pittsburgh is holding on to Hebner, Oliver, Singy, and Justy. Detroit's holding on to Norm Cash, Al Kaline, Mickey Stanley, Mickey Lolich. That's why Coleman was put on waivers. In between, Baltimore stood pat with what they have, just acquiring Eddie Watt last round. You've got a lot of standing pat now because there's all the big moves have been made. Vegas, the Expos, and the Red Sox all had 4 keepers, and they are just keeping their same guys. Ken Berry, good defense for Vegas. They like defense. Ed Brinkman. Fryman and Lonborg had great pitching cards for Vegas, are holding on to them. The Expos, this is pretty shrewd. Mickey Scott, who was just an extra lefty reliever, he actually gets better with an Angels card. J.L. Lew will always hit 300 as a pinch hitter. Bacabella will just be a backup to Gary Carter. Tom Walker already in the Expo pen. So just an internal improvement. And the Red Sox, what are you going to do? It's Fisk, it's Louis Tiant, it's Rick Wise, Doug Griffin. There's no reason to go searching for something beyond the Red Sox players you already have. So when we look at the carousel, that's sort of the real cold and quick and easy segment of teams that sort of said either they had too much talent, weren't going to get enough in return. At least Kansas City got 2 tokens. Pittsburgh got 1. The Tigers could not get a token for Joe Coleman. And so in the next section, you're going to have, this is the last chance. These 8 teams, the Mets are going to push 2 in there. The Cubs will push 2 in there. White Sox will push 2 in there. I think the Giants will push 1 in there. And it's about displacing someone who's presently kept. So obviously, there are keepers on certain teams who aren't as good as some of the players that the top 8 teams in the league are going to put on waivers. That includes for the Mets, Bobby Darwin, Duffy Dyer. It includes Glenn Beckert, Jim Hickman, Carlos May, Tom Bradley, Willie Mays. And but I'm not sure. Yeah, Willie Mays is probably on the retired list, as a matter of fact. But yeah, 3/4 of the way through. We got one more segment to do, and then we should be getting finalized at the 4:02:02. Look at the math now. We're down to 139, 55, 62. The top number is going down. The middle number is going up. The top number has to go down on 128. The middle number has to go up to 64. The last number has to go up to 64. It's getting closer, folks. Getting closer. Thanks for checking out this analysis, and we'll see you next time.